instead of just one message, since we've got the kids up here. Although I will tell you that these are two topics that I never thought I'd be speaking on from the pulpit on the same morning. They're extremes, okay? Basically, you could call this dinosaurs and doctrine. So, bear with me on this. Jane, I've been talking with Jane, and we discussed about having a message that was kind of geared towards children and doing something for the kids. And so I asked her, what are some of the things that kids ask about? And she mentioned dinosaurs. Dinosaurs have become a question that come up occasionally downstairs with the kids or on Sunday morning with the kids. And so I thought that I would take a look at two, yes?
And I want to tell you guys, the reason we even got into the topic of dinosaurs is that we're going through the scripture with those picture charts from Genesis all the way, to the flood of Noah and Abraham, to the birth of Jesus and the crucifixion and the return of Christ and the rapture and all that. So we were in that part of the creation of the earth, and one of the little girls said, well, where did dinosaurs come from? I don't know, but I'll find out. So I asked you, Charles.
Well, and that's what we're going to look at today. Two of the most common questions that get asked today are, where did the dinosaurs come from? And where did they go? Where did they go? Now, first off, kids, I wasn't there. I can't speak from first-hand experience. I didn't witness this. What I'm doing is I'm putting together my understanding of both scriptures and looking at things from a historical perspective. In our Bibles, Genesis 1:1 tells us this. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 11, it also says, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them. Finally, we get to John chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, which says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was. In these three verses, they tell us that God made everything. That includes the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs just didn't happen to show up. They weren't just some thing that randomly happened. God created them. He had a purpose for them. And they're there. They're in the scriptures. Okay? And we know on day one, God created the heaven, the earth, the light. We get to day 2, God creates the sky that separates the waters. He separates the waters. On day 3, God, he gathered the waters together and he just allowed dry land to appear. And at that time, God created vegetation. And on day 4, God created the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. And then we get to day 5. And this is where things start getting interesting in regards to dinosaurs, okay? Day 5, Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 and 21 says this. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that has life, the fowl that may fly above the earth and the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moves, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So on day 5, God, he creates all the birds, everything that flies in the air, and he created all the creatures that live in the water. You know what else he created on day 5? The pteranodon, a creature that lives in the air, along with several other types of flying reptiles. He also created the plesiosaur and all the other dinosaurs that live in the water. And then we get to day 6. Day 6, Genesis chapter 1, verse 24 tells us, and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. Now, things up on that screen, we can easily imagine some of them. We see dogs and raccoons and wolves and such. We see those in our neighborhoods. Other things we'll see on TV or if we go to the zoo. We can easily imagine God creating these things on day 6, but God created a couple other things on day 6. Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus rex, all the other land-dwelling dinosaurs that were around. And you know what else is really exciting about day 6? God created Adam and Eve. You know, there's people that are going to tell you that man and dinosaurs didn't live at the same time. But if we look at it through the eyes of the Bible, we're going to see that on day 5, God created the water-dwelling dinosaurs and the flying dinosaurs. And on day 6, he created the land-dwelling dinosaurs. Some of these creatures were created one day before Adam. Some created just a few hours before him. Adam got to name all these things. And you know, none of them were dangerous to Adam. You know, God had made a creation that was perfect. There was no fear. The animals didn't fear man, and man didn't fear the animals. There was no death. There was no disease. You know, Adam could play fetch with the dogs. He could go wrestle with a bear. He could ride the back of a triceratops if he wanted to. It was all done in safety. So what happened to the dinosaurs? Well, same thing that's happened to many of God's creation, the animals that he created. You know, when Adam sinned, all creation was affected. Everything started to age. And then by the time we get to the ark, any land-dwelling creature that was not on that ark died. Now, I believe that Noah did take some dinosaurs into the ark. Now, some argue that this is impossible because of the size of dinosaurs, that God couldn't have included space for the dinosaurs. There just wasn't enough room. But you know, God never said that the animals that went into the ark had to be full-grown adults, did he? You know, if you're going to be putting some dogs someplace for a long period of time, it's easier to store food if they're a couple puppies than it is if they're full-grown. You don't need to have as much food. Doubt that God had full-grown dinosaurs going into the ark. It's very possible that instead of full-grown dinosaurs, or even infant dinosaurs, he just had eggs in there. The average egg for a dinosaur was about the size of a football. You could put a lot of footballs in the ark. We didn't have any problem having room for the ark, for small dinosaurs, for the eggs, things like that. Now, many creatures, you know, like I said, when they're in the ark, there are eggs for them. We didn't have food for them until they hatched. Baby dinosaurs wouldn't take up much room, wouldn't need much care. Now, some, they say that dinosaurs, they aren't mentioned in the Bible. And in a way, that's true. The word dinosaur does not appear in the Bible. But why would it? The creatures that were written about in Scripture, and the word itself was written long before we had the word dinosaur. In 1842, British philanthropist or paleontologist Sir Richard Owen, he coined the word dinosaur. He combined two Greek words, Dianos, meaning terrible or fearfully great, and saurus, meaning lizard or reptile. Owen is describing the unearthed ancient fossils of these terrible lizards, these huge creatures that the bones were now being found. Like I said, the word dinosaur is not in the Bible. But there is another word that we are familiar with that is in the Bible that could also describe a dinosaur. And that is dragon. Dragon. Many dragons, many dinosaurs, they died before the Great Flood. Archaeologists, they find their bones today, and these are huge creatures, huge and terrible creatures. I could understand why they would say, I couldn't fit all in the ark. But you know what? Before the flood, our environment was completely different. Adam, he lived to be 930 years old. Seth, 912. Methuselah, 969 years. They lived a long time. You know what else? You know that most reptiles, they don't stop growing until the day they die? They don't stop growing until the day they die. Now, how long did dinosaurs or reptiles live before the flood? If they didn't stop growing, they got to be pretty big. And they may not have started out huge in the garden, but by the time of the flood, they were huge, enormous. Of course, those weren't reigning on the ark. And after the flood, those that came across on the ark, they didn't live as long. People didn't live as long. The environment had changed. It wasn't ideal anymore. It wasn't perfect. Man didn't live as long. Dinosaurs didn't live as long. They didn't grow as large. They still grew, though. They were still big. Book of Job mentions two such creatures. One's known as Behemoth, and the other is Leviathan. And many will try to tell you that what's being described here are elephants or hippopotamuses, but if you really read the descriptions, it doesn't fit. It doesn't look like a dinosaur or an elephant or a hippopotamus that we would see in the zoo today. The tails themselves don't match up. I mean, they describe the tail being like a cedar tree. I've never seen an elephant with a cedar tree type tail. It's just a little tiny thing. I believe that these mentioning of the behemoth and Leviathan, I believe that these were references to dinosaurs that had survived and had grown after the flood. But in Isaiah 27 verse 1 and Jeremiah 51 verse 34, dragons are mentioned as metaphors, as great destructive powers. So we have some biblical references to the power of dragons, the power of dinosaurs. And over time, we just started calling these things dinosaurs. We call them dinosaurs now, but they were known as dragons in the Bible. Now, this picture that's up here depicts a battle between St. George and a dragon. Now, little is known about St. George. He was a Roman soldier who became a Christian. He was martyred in 303 AD by the Roman Emperor Diocletian. He was martyred because he refused to renounce his Christian beliefs. One story, though, about St. George involved him rescuing a Libyan king's daughter by slaying a dragon. There's many legends about dragons throughout the whole world. You'll find them in definitely Chinese lore, in Japanese, English lore, Celtic lore, or Native American lore. There's just mentions of dragons throughout. They're found all over the world. I want to recommend that you sit down with your parents and maybe check out these websites, Answers in Genesis, ChristianAnswers.com, Genesis Park. Genesis Park has a lot of really interesting stuff. I really like that. I just came across that site. So, what did happen to the dinosaurs? Well, some of them, maybe they're still around. They just don't grow as large because they don't live as long. Many of them died. We know a lot of them died during the flood. The climate was different after the flood, so they didn't live as long. Some animals just die out. It happens. And sometimes, we're supposed to be good stewards of the earth, but we're not great at it sometimes. It said that at one time it could take several hours for a herd of buffalo to pass by. But by 1889, the buffalo population has dwindled down to 500. Now, thankfully, people, they stepped up. They decided we're going to save the buffaloes. And between national parks, ranches, and zoos, there's about 500,000 buffalo today. But it's easy to see how they could have been hunted out of existence. They no longer exist. I mean, think about it. They didn't grow to be large. They would eat a lot. People would have to protect their herds, protect their families. They hunted them down and they killed them. I think that's what happened. There before the flood, they grew huge because they lived longer. After the flood, we still had some that had come on the ark. They survived. We have legends about them that we now call them dragons. But today, well, you might still hear about the Loch Ness Monster, over in England, in the locks there. People occasionally report finding some, seeing some things that are unusual. But I think for the most part, dinosaurs have been killed off. But they were part of God's creation, created on days 5 and 6. They did come across man, and they became a part of our history. So I hope this answers your questions. Where did they come from? God created them. Where did they go? Well, they just died out, either through hunting or natural selection. They just died. I hope that answers your questions. I know it may not be the greatest answers that we want, but with that being said, a short prayer, and then we'll move on to the adult sermon.